lovely people. So this video is part 2 of my discussion of the 23 character posters that Amazon launched for The Lord of the Rings of Power. Part 1 will be linked in the description box below. Please watch that first because we're just jumping right into where I had to cut it. The original video was 1 hour and 20 minutes long, so I had to trim it. So we're just going to dive right in to keep talking about the posters. So definitely watch the first one first and then come back to this. So this guy, this was, I suppose, the most like traditionally elven looking kind of costume. Very red. I've seen other people say this could be Celebrimbor as well, or that it could be Anatar. But I've also heard rumors that Anatar isn't showing up in season 1, which would make me very sad because, like so many other people, I'm clearly only watching this show for sexy Sauron. That's a lie. It's not the only reason I'm watching the show. He better be hot. So this one is interesting because it was the first one that the first one I saw that had text on it. So this is, I flipped it upside down so you can kind of see the Tengwad a little bit more clearly, like so. And you can see that there's kind of you zoom in, there's like a gate there, and like it was reminding me a little bit of Menegroth, but I wasn't sure like if I should say that, and then I was really glad then that Luke actually said it out loud on the chat. But he he made the connection not to Menegroth. So Menegroth was the realm of the Elven King Thingol in the First Age. Luke made the connection with the gates of the Woodland Realm as Tolkien illustrated them for The Hobbit. And so like I was suddenly really hyped because like Thranduil is one of my favorite characters, and it would be so cool if we get to see something about the foundation of the Greenwood with him and his dad Oropher in the Second Age, and kind of like, I guess since we have Galadriel as a character, I think there's a lot of really interesting social themes that one could talk about when it comes to like, you know, the different approaches to migration and colonization, because I mean, it's going to have to tackle those themes anyway, because Numenor did end up becoming a colonial power, and one that ended up exploiting resources along the coast of Middle Earth, which is shit, of course. And I'm saying this because I'm interested in these themes. It would be really cool if the show is able to critically engage in that, because Tolkien has given us material to critically engage in it. You have the Numenorians on the coast who exploits the woodland, and end up, you know, turning very hostile towards the men of Middle Earth, who obviously in turn turn hostile against the Numenorians, and some of them unfortunately go over to Sauron's side. And then you have, you know, Galadriel coming into Lothlorien, and basically the Sylvan elves of that realm kind of get absorbed under her cultural influence, and the Noldorin cultural influence, which is interesting. And then you have Orfer and Thranduil, who, when they go to the woodland realm, to the Greenwood, they have a different perspective, because their idea is, you know, after all of the tumult of the First Age and all of the, you know, they don't like Galadriel's influence, they don't like the dwarves' influence, and they kind of want to go back to their roots and the nature that the Sylvan elves have. It's a bit of a noble savage kind of vibe, if I'm honest, but I think that it would be really interesting because it contrasts to what the Numenorians do versus what Galadriel does. And then, you know, in the Unfinished Tales, we have two different versions of how Orfer and you know, and his realm kind of like play out and, you know, manage that cultural, depending on which version you read, either cultural exchange or cultural erasure. This is from the Unfinished Tales, the section on the Sindar Princes. I think that's the title, on the Sindar Princes. And one version of the text has the Wood Elves retaining Sylvan Elvish, and like Thranduil's realm being like the last place in the Third Age that Sylvan Elvish is spoken. But another version of the text talks about the Sindarization of the Greenwood and how it ends up being it ends up being culturally Sindarized, so the Wood Elves kind of like lose their culture and their language as well, which is not excellent at all. So I mean, there's precedent for if the show wants to do with this, they could go in either direction. To be honest, there's textual evidence for both. I don't know how much they can touch the Unfinished Tales though. Actually, I'm super fuzzy on what the rights actually are, because I thought it was just the Lord of the Rings appendices they had rights to, but I feel like some of the things they're bringing in seem to imply that they might have access to certain segments of the Silmarillion or of the Unfinished Tales. I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, my whole point of saying all of this was that if, going back to the poster, if this map implies anything about going to the Greenwood, um, it could be a really cool story point to be able to contrast with talking about Numenor and Lothlorien and the Greenwood and the different kinds of phases of kind of, you know, imperialism, cultural imperialism and colonialism that take place. Because there is a lot of that in the Second Age, which is personally why I find it such a fascinating era. I mean, like, you know, Tolkien himself, his own, you know, opinions when it came to, you know, colonialism and race, they're complicated. There's things both for and against him on the record, you know. I'm gonna unpack this in another video because I actually wrote a paper about it. I feel like there's a lot of ways you can really critically engage with this. It's probably gonna make some fans big mad, but like, fuck it, you know. I think it's cool, and I hope they go there. But anyway, back to the poster. So the text said, this is like the Dwarven Hammer. When I first read this, like I was trying to read it in Beleriand mode, which is so Tengwar, this Tolkien's alphabet. It can be written in basically two ways. One of them is I think general mode is the one I'm thinking of, where you don't write out the vowels. They're indicated by not accents. There is a word for this. I am blanking right now, but over each like teta, which is like the letters, you have these little like ching, like I don't know, like apostrophes or little like squiggles, which are kind of like those are the vowels. And so like, you know, it's like in Arabic. So Arabic can be written either like without the vowels, and then like you know the word, so you don't need to know the vowels, you just see the consonants and you know the word. Or sometimes, for example, one of my friends has a copy of the Quran, which has a it's like a learner's copy because they're not native Arabic speakers. So it has these like it has those little symbols that indicate where the vowels are on the word. So it's interesting because Tengwar, the what I think it's called the general mode, um, operates like that. So kind of like the original Tengwar that Feanor devised, operates with the vowels as like these symbols. But general mode, you actually write out the symbols, and I think general mode came about when the Noldor came when they were living in the Undying Lands. They came back to Middle Earth. It's a whole ass thing. It's in the Silmarillion. I'm not gonna go over it now. And this whole other like shit happened with the King Thingol, who I've already mentioned. He was a different ethnicity. He was a Sindar elf, not a Noldor. And he was big mad at the Noldor because they had killed other elves like back in their home in the Undying Lands. And Thingol was like, "That's fucked. You are not allowed to speak your language anymore," which was a bit extreme, I think. But like like a Thingol special. And because of that, they had to basically speak Sindarin, which was not their native tongue, which was Quenya. And Sindarin apparently is easier written with the vowels written out. So it's called Beleriand mode. But this poster is not written in Beleriand mode because it's written in fucking English, not in Elvish. So when I was reading it, and I was reading in Beleriand mode because I could see there weren't any accents, so it had to be, it couldn't be general mode. And this, like this word, not this cluster, but this, this cluster right here. It says Friv, F-R-Y-V. I was going over it with a friend of mine, and I was like, "Do you read Friv?" And she was like, "I read Friv," and I was like, "That makes no sense. I'm so confused." I really doubted for a second my nerd credentials. Like, how could I not read the Tengwar? But turns out it's not my fault because it was in fucking English, and I thought that it was supposed to be in Elvish, so it was written in English mode. So it actually says, apparently for the people who figured that out and translated it, King's Hall view from south. I think that's what it's supposed to say, King's Hall view from south. Fucking English. Which is interesting. When we were having our Twitter space, so Luke, Tolkien Guide, and I, and Fellowship of Fans, and a couple of the others who, Marcel, Orban Bulis also joined us for that one. Um, and they kind of like during that discussion we talked about like the woodland realm possibility. Oh, also because there's a bridge. There's a bridge in this one, and the bridge, bridges that's in Menegroth. There was a bridge. There's pretty sure there's a bridge in Thranduil's halls as well, but those weren't built yet at this point. Maybe the Orifers halls in Amon Lank or in the mountains of Mirkwood were built already, but I don't know. But there could easily be a bridge in Eregion as well, which is where Celebrimbor lives, which is why some people are saying that this could be Annatar. But I don't know. Let's move on to the next poster. I was so excited about this one. Look at that. That's so fucking cool. This is one of my favorites. I love how the armor kind of has like this green man on it. Like that was the first thing I noticed was kind of the green man. And with the arrow, like because of all of this, the first thing that I thought of when I saw this, I was like, this screams Sylvan Elf. And like that's why I got so excited about the idea of the map one being the Greenwood, because I was like, oh my god, like what if we get to delve into some Sylvan Elf culture, and there's so much room to basically explore. I mean, like I write a lot about Sylvan Elves in my fanfic because there's so much room to explore. So since Amazon is making their big budget fanfic, like it would be great if they could also explore it too. And like just looking at this, like it also kind of fits the idea of the Greenwood Elves, because so as we when you read the text, I can't remember if this is from Of the Rings of Power in the Third Age in the Silmarillion or if it's from the Unfinished Tales. But basically, when the Greenwood Elves went to fight in the War of the Last Alliance, they had really shitty armor. Their armor was bad. They fought well, but they had shit armor and they got killed. They also got killed because their king Orifer charged too early, because he was like, Gilgalad is like a Noldor, so fuck him. I'm not gonna take his orders because I'm my own king, and alliances, what are those? So like this mad lad just rushed in to the orcs like early before Gilgalad had given the signal and got his ass killed. So then Thranduil had to become king on the battlefield. Great move for your son, dad. I'm writing a fanfic about this. Like I'm invested. But like that's also why I thought like the screams Sylvan Elf, because of like wooden armor as opposed to like metal or something. So I don't know. I hope that's a Sylvan Elf. Other people are saying that it could be a Druedain, so one of the other ethnic groups of men in Middle Earth. That could also be super interesting. I've already talked at length about the colonial aspect and how I hope they'll explore it. If it's a Druedain character, that could be super fascinating to discuss, especially because one of the characters who I'll talk about later has a sword with a horse on it. So it's going to be some time before the kingdom of Rohan comes into being, but it's Rohan's ancestors could already be kind of in the early stages of formation, and if we have Druedain characters, there's a lot of beef between them by the time we get to Lord of the Rings, and we have the entire like storyline with like Ganburi Gan. So it could be interesting if it's a Druedain character that we can start exploring those relationships, also the relationships with the Numenorians on the coast with their fuck ass deforestation policies. But yeah, I think it's yeah, I think that was one of my favorite posters. Um, Not too much to say about this one. Just like I think it's cool that we get some more material culture. We see a scythe, which is a different kind of weapon. It's not just swords, so it's quite a nice poster. Ooh, this one. This one was interesting. When I first saw this, I was like, the fuck, another broken sword? Like, bitch, how many broken swords are there in this franchise? Um, but it's an interesting one, because when I first saw it, I was like, okay, again, like this thing with the negative space, right? Like you can see the sword has so much negative space on it. But the first thing that I thought of when I looked at it was it looked like something that's been pulled from the ocean. So the first thing that jumped into my mind was first age relic, you know? And it's a character who doesn't look very noble or whatever. It's almost like he's holding on to something hereditary, something that could have been pulled from the ocean. Also because like the metal where it's been broken, it looks like it's been weathered. It's not like Narsil. It's not been kept sharp and neat. It's been like weathered by the tide, by time, by bacteria or whatever shit. Um, and it's got a strange inscription on it. And then I think it was like I noticed that it had black metal on it. And I had been thinking about like there are swords with black metal in the first made of black metal in the first age. And then Jeremy Edmonds enunciated that point and pointed out that there are swords of black metal in the first age. And basically, it would be interesting if it is. We had a very interesting discussion, all of us on the Twitter space, um, talking about the swords that were made by the Dark Elf Eol in the First Age. So there was Anglachel and its twin Anguirel. Um, and you know, Anglachel ended up being broken and then remade into Gurthang, and it was wielded by Turin, and it was like a fucking evil sword and was always like whispering things, and like it could talk. It could talk. And he ended up. I think yeah. I think it was with Gurthang that he ended up killing himself. That sword like had that entire history, and I don't like. It would be very weird if they brought it back. If they wanted to bring back a sword, like I guess they could bring its twin Anguirel, because it went to Gondolin and then there wasn't. It didn't have a lot of story attached to it, so you could create story for it, you know, presumably. But to be honest, I'm not sure why you would. Because swords, like when swords have significance in Tolkien, they have significance, and this kind of feels like it would be, you know, a little bit of a bridge too far if it was one of the um, meteorite swords that were forged by Eol. Um, I think that shit should stay in the first age. So I hope it's not that. I hope it's a different kind of sword, but I'm not sure because it's definitely giving those vibes. So we'll see. Um, it needs like if you're going to involve a sword of that caliber, you need to have it needs to have the appropriate narrative weight, you know. So I don't know if the series wants to do that because there's so many other like textual things that they can lend weight to, like Sauron. Well, the next poster is the one that I mentioned. This character with this sword with a horse. So obviously everybody saw this and was like Rohan, but you know Rohan isn't there in the second age, so it's like it's not a player at all. So I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be like some proto Rohirric tribe. I guess we'll see. Didn't have strong opinions on this. This one very hobbity. I'm gonna sound like such an asshole, but I didn't have very strong opinions on the Hobbit posters. I was just like, "Yay, hobbits!" But I thought it was cute that they have the acorn thing because you know one of the motifs in Jackson's Hobbit films was Bilbo and his acorn, and how he was going to bring it back to the Shire with him and then plant it, and then Thorin was like, "Plant your trees, watch them grow." Cry my soul. But I like the fact that there are acorns here. It's cute. I think it's cute. It's a nice poster. And the fact that they're green, because you know, that's like, if I'm not wrong, and like, okay, full disclosure, I usually leave Europe in the summer to go back to Singapore. So uh, I don't really know what acorns look like before they fall down from the tree, but I have seen green on fallen acorns, so I assume that at some point acorns are completely green. But I like that idea because it's kind of like it's the idea of something not being full ripe yet, you know? And if this story is going to delve into like proto hobbits or early hobbit society, I think it's like really nice. Like it's a nice like symbolism thing, you know, to not have a fully ripe acorn. And it's a nice kind of continuity thing with the whole thing in the Jackson film. So with that motif, it's cute. I like it. Ooh, this one was interesting. This is the one that I saw it, and then I saw this claw that's on it, and I was like, oh my god, Velociraptors in Middle Earth. Like to be honest, it's probably just because I've been waiting for Jurassic World Dominion for like 84 years, but it would be really cool if there were Velociraptors. More seriously though, I think it's interesting. One thing that I pointed out on the Twitter space was that the first thing I thought of after I thought of velociraptors, the first thing that I thought of was um, the idea of, you know, dark creatures like remnants from Angband who may have escaped, kind of like, you know, the purge when and the sinking, the drowning of Beleriand, and might have like, you know, stayed, because we always hear about like, you know, like there's always like, you know, the dark things, dark beasts and birds and whatever. um and you know, even in the Last Alliance, like Sauron mentions that of beasts and birds could be people, no, creatures of every kind could be found on every side save the elves. And so like, you know, that could mean anything. It could, and dark creatures don't just have to be orcs or fell beasts or anything. Like we don't actually know all of the weird eldritch horrors that Middle Earth could be full of, and like Tolkien alludes to a fair few of them, you know. Shout out to the gnawing things in the Lord of the Rings in the Mines of Moria chapter. Like those, that is some eldritch horror right there. I still think about those guys. Like I love that line, the gnawing things. Even Sauron knows them not. Oh, juice. I liked the idea of it, like maybe being like an organic way for the story to work in, you know, backstory about the First Age. So, you know, for example, if you have a dark creature who survived the destruction of Angband and kind of stayed in Middle Earth, and maybe these like, you know, these creatures, they menace like, you know, outlying villages, for example, places that are further from, you know, protection by guards or march wardens. And these creatures could come and you know, attack farmhands, and they have to like beat them off and whatever. And you know, that could be a super interesting way actually to bring in First Age lore by having you know, people experience the echoes of the First Age, really. And it could help flesh out the world, because like, you know, I think there's rumors that J.A. Bayona's um episodes, so the first two, are gonna be kind of like feature length and do a lot of First Age backstory. But I mean, there's so much of that backstory. So as much as they can tell with those rumored First Age episodes, I feel like these provide even more opportunities to organically bring in other backstory from the First Age by having Second Age characters actively engage with it. It's cool. I don't know if that's what it is, but I saw that claw. I thought velociraptors first, and then afterwards dark creatures. So I hope they go there. Um, then we have this one, not much to say except one thing that Luke pointed out that was pretty cool was that all of these characters holding food are offering them. Um, I personally find red berries a bit suspicious, but we'll see what they actually are when things come to pass in the show. This was the one that Luke was given to show on his channel. I've already talked about it. I'm like 90% sure that's Lenny Henry and his Hobbit character, and the map is really interesting. Somebody pointed out that the pictograms are reminiscent of something in between the Goblin language from Tolkien's Father Christmas letters and like Kirth. So they're kind of like existing sort of in space between those two alphabets or scripts. It's probably something that they've invented for the show, but I think it's interesting. It's cool to see this material culture, to use Luke's word. This one, not many thoughts on it, except that I noticed that her bracelet um, looks a lot like a bracelet that I have. That's made of volcanic pumice stone. So it could be really interesting if this is a character from the east, because you know, I mean, the only volcano we know of in Middle Earth is Mount Doom. So it would be interesting if this is a character, you know, from the east. Like one thing that I've always thought about is basically, you know, the people who kind of like fuel Sauron's entire war machine. Um, you know, in order to feed all of his armies. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this is canon or if this is something that I've internalized that fans have theorized, but of there being fields like fields to till near the Sea of Rune, which is in the southeast of Mordor, which is further from the volcano. And as you know, like volcanic ashes makes land very fertile. Mordor is not fertile, but places maybe downwind of the mountain could be. If it's got, you know, if it's got ash, and like, you know, it would be interesting. Like I think it would be fascinating to delve into some of the characters that either by choice or by compulsion are, you know, involved with Sauron and his armies in the east, kind of like the people, because you know, as I mentioned, War of the Last Alliance, there were people of every type on both sides. And I think it would be really cool to kind of delve into that, because contrary to, I think, what a lot of like maybe more, not even just casual fans, I think that some like diehard fans are a bit black and white about stuff too sometimes when it comes to Lord of the Rings. But the Second Age was very not black and white in many ways. There is a lot of gray area in terms of like, you know, ethics and morality and war, and the way that war can fuck with ethics and morality. So I know, if this character is from the East and like that's literally just me speculating because she has a pumice stone reminiscent bracelet, it would be cool. Like y'all, in many ways, these posters are just kind of like jumping off points from my own imagination and speculation about the second age and what I would like to see. So that's just me. This one, not much to say about it. It's just, you know, he was a sailor boy. I said, see you later, boy. Because see, he's holding a rope. That's all I noticed. I was like, oh, he's holding a rope. He's a sailor. I think Fellowship of Fans said that this might be Isildur, but I don't know. I hope they don't do him dirty. He's one of my favorite second age characters, actually, alongside Thranduil. This character is cool. I'm pretty sure, like, my first instinct upon seeing this was Tar Miriel. Tar Miriel, renamed by Mr. Asshole Farazan to Ar Zimbrafel. Her name's Tar Miriel, okay? Who is a pretty, she's a minor and yet very, like, meaningful character in the Akalabeth. I think she's fascinating. This flower makes it look like she could be holding a flower of Nimloth. Nimloth was the white tree in Numenor. It has a whole backstory of how it got there as well, and it is eventually cut down by Sauron when he starts his satanic cult on Numenor, but not before Isildur can steal a fruit from it and carry it to Middle Earth and plant it so it can one day become the White Tree of Gondor that we all know. So it would be very cool if she's holding a blossom from the White Tree of Nimloth. Other fans have pointed out, I can't remember who said this, that it could be Lyra. Lyra was the name of the person who pointed out the thing about Celebrimbor. Thank you, Lyra. Your name was Lyra. I don't remember if it was Lyra who said this as well or another fan, but pointed out that because of the armor looking like, or the dress looking like fish scales, it could also be Uinen, who was a Maya. So one of the lesser powers in Tolkien, of course, there are the Ainur, so the powers of the world, the gods, and you have two levels. You have the Valad, who are like the head honchos, and then the Maiad, who like are like more or less serving one of them. Sauron, my beloved, is a Maya. Uinen, who's also a badass, is a Maya. Gandalf is a Maya. Yeah. So this fan who may or may not have been Lyra pointed out that their first thought was of Uinen, and I thought that's really interesting because we don't actually have really interactions with the Ainur in the Second Age, with the obvious exception of Sauron. It would be cool. Like, I don't necessarily see why there's a reason for Uinen not to show up. Like, I know the Valar were definitely they were super hands off in the Second Age, and I have opinions about that, which I will share in another video. But yeah, it would be interesting if it was, but I don't know. I first thought it was Miriel. Another fan said that it gave them very strong Annatar vibes, which was really interesting as well. It's true, like the hands do look feminine, but it could also just be a guy with very soft hands. You know, it's like I wouldn't put it past. It's actually quite hard to tell a person's gender by their hands when you start thinking about it. You know, like certain hands definitely like look more like they could belong to a male person. Certain hands definitely look more like a female person, but like, you know, at the end of the day, they're just hands, and it can actually be kind of hard to tell. So you never know. This one was interesting. Kathy, I think, was the one who said that it made her think of like a priestess of some sort, or like a librarian or something, or a great lady holding this book. They pointed that out because you can also see a scrap of red fabric on the next poster, which I'll talk about at length. So there could be a link between the two, between this character and this character. But yeah, the book is really interesting with the waves on it and such. But this one's interesting. I'm like 90% sure this is Elrond. I wasn't at first. I was dithering. I can't remember who I said on the space it wasn't Elrond. But the more I looked at it, the more I think about it, the more like I'm sure it's Elrond, and it's because zoom in on the textiles and look at those. One of them looks like a Feanorian star. One of them looks like the device of Luthien. Elrond has a connection to both. So, and it's very simple but noble, you know, this design choice. Simple, but you know, with the gold, it's still got a bit of luxury about it. So, you know, hard to say. It could be connected to the character with the red robe, could not. Um, I don't know. It would be really interesting if it was Elrond. One of the characters that we did posit for this was it could be somebody who's connected, possibly like an elf who's connected to the Havens. So the Havens and Círdan, who builds the ships. Who builds the ships? Círdan the shipwright is his actual name. Sorry guys, his name from now on is Círdan who builds the ships. That's his official title in all of Elvendom, okay? Círdan who builds the ships. We talked about maybe it's a character who's connected to him. Hard to say. Then, oh, when I saw this one, I kind of like I had belly flutters. It's really cool. I mean, look at that. That's fucking awesome. That's great. I love the design of the sword and of the armor. Um, the first thing that I thought of when I saw it was Anarion, solely because of the sun. Like the sun motif is so strong in this. But as others pointed out, at the center of the sun in the pommel of the blade, um, you can see like a white circle, which could arguably be the moon. So the sun and the moon. And similarly, here you have the sun, but it looks like, you know, a half moon is inside it. And so, you know, Elendil, his two sons were Anarion and Isildur, you know, Anar, sun, Ithil, moon. So his sons were, you know, the sun and the moon. And it would be like, that would be both wholesome to incorporate into his armor and also awesome. So I think there's been some speculation as well that this could be Elendil. This might not be Narsil. It would be really fucking cool if it was Narsil though. That he's holding. Um, how many more do we have? Three more. We're nearly there. This is a long video. Thank you for sticking it out with me. This one was interesting. It's a character with grubby hands and an apple. I didn't have very strong opinions about it. Some people think it could be the character who's rumored to be arriving from a meteor. I can't remember who said this, but I had a similar thought that it looks like it looks like the evil witch offering up the apple to Snow White. So like, you know, Anatar? No, I don't think it's Anatar. Unless he wants to dress up as an old man first, which is like, you know, more power to him. But part of me thinks that Sauron, if he's gonna disguise himself, he wants to look like the hottest bitch in town. So I don't think it's him. Now this guy, it's interesting. When I saw this, okay, a couple of different thoughts came into my head. I first thought was Elendil, second thought was Gil-galad, third thought was Ar-Pharazôn. Gil-galad because I associate blue quite strongly with him. Ar-Pharazôn after you know, somebody pointed out the Fëanorian stars that had been quietly ignoring on the gold costumed character. And Elendil just because like I think royal blue suits him in my visual imagination of what Elendil looks like. Royal blue or purple, I think, are Elendil colors, in my personal opinion. But yeah, no idea who it could be. There's some really interesting motifs on the design, on the buckles, but it's kind of hard to say. The rings are interesting because two of them have gems. Somebody pointed out how the green kind of is reminiscent of, you know, the ring of Barahir, which I thought was an interesting note. Here we're talking about Numenorean kings, but yeah, no strong opinions on this except I really love that robe and I kind of want it. And blue and gold are god tier colors. Last one. This one. This one. I don't think it's Sauron. It's not Sauron. It would be a disservice to be that obvious and say that this is Sauron. My first thought was Witch King. I think Fellowship of Fans is reporting that it's neither Witch King nor Sauron, and it is in fact Adar, who is a new character. Could be a character disguising as another character, hard to say. Allegedly played by Joseph Mawle. Personally, I found it hilarious that the character's name is Adar. Like, I get it because, like, you know, he's supposed to be like leading orcs or something, so they're gonna call him like Adar, Adar, but there are gonna be so many daddy jokes about that. I just know it. The armor is pretty interesting. The gauntlet, it's very, you know, reminiscent of like the Morgul armor that we have in Peter Jackson's trilogy. The sword is fascinating too. Again, this whole thing about the negative space, the pommel looking like weird with like hole, like this idea of like, you know, holes in the pommel. This one, like the holes are filled in by gems, it seems, but like black gems. But like it kind of like it made me think of, you know, Galadriel's dagger, which also has like holes in it, but those ones aren't filled in; they're just empty. Um, but yeah, I've when I saw this, I thought it was the Witch King of Angmar. Obviously not of Angmar yet, because he isn't Witch King of Angmar yet. He's just a Witch King. Because the Nazgul kind of become the Nazgul in the Second Age, and it would be fucking awesome to see that on screen. It would be so cool to see that on screen. But, you know, maybe another season, maybe not this one. Those were my super long winded thoughts about the posters. Thank you so much for sticking it out with me. I hope this was interesting. And like, you know, I'd love to hear some of your speculations about this too. I am just so encouraged by how much care the team is putting into the posters, to the point that, like, you know, we fans can have a 2 hour Twitter space talking about this, and I can still talk about it for like another, like, God knows how long this video is at this point. You know, with you guys. It's, yeah, I think it's just a testament to how much effort the design team is putting into these characters, and how many different things we're noticing. I'm sure there's stuff that I've left out that I talked about or discussed with others or thought about. But yeah, thank you so much for being here and for listening. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on the poster in the comments. I'm looking forward to doing more videos about the Rings of Power as we get more information about it. Honestly, like, pray that there's some kind of teaser or something at the Super Bowl. I really, really hope there's gonna be something. It'll be an awesome way to tide us over until September. I'm pretty sure the marketing monster is about to kick into gear very soon, so I'm excited. And yeah, I'll definitely make another video pretty soon to talk a little bit more about some of my thoughts about the Rings of Power, and catch you all another time. So thank you so much for tuning into my channel. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. You can hit the little bell to be notified when I post the next video. I can't wait to walk through the Second Age with all of you this September. So yeah, oh, and you can also give me a follow on Twitter, where I will be yelling a lot about Tolkien, as I already do, but I'm gonna keep yelling until the day I die. Have a great week, everybody. Ciao.